the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
The wind is howling around the giant shed here at High Ash Farm on this very wet and woolly Thursday morning. Hi there, welcome to the Countryside Podcast. It's one of these named storms coming in, so I'm going to retreat well into the shed and see if I can find Farmer Chris Skinner. Just make my way between these huge tractors and the JCB and this big trailer. There's some more farm implements that Chris will tell me about what these are, but I think he said he'd be somewhere around the back. And this is a massive building these days. I think I can see him. Chris!
Matthew, good morning. I've come down the end of the workshop to get out of the worst of the wind and the rain. And this time of the year, all the equipment that we have, where possible, comes in undercover just because of the investment in it. And I thought we've actually never done this before, this portion of the farm. It's perhaps the most important building. It's the farm workshop, and everything gets maintained. It's always busy, so there's people walking around outside. Girls are still doing their horses. It's early in the morning. And I sort of scratch my head when I look round in here. I just do one implement at a time, like big cultivator here, and we put all new points on it. Here it is. And this is a soil cultivator, heavy spring tines on it, and a real solid frame. Weighs about 2 tons. And there's some more equipment even further at the back. Let's get right to the back of the building.
I'm watching out for all these
It's
pointy...
like an aircraft hangar in here.
Well, it is huge, and it replaces the old shed that I remember from a few years ago that actually was in danger of, like Dorothy's house in The Wizard of Oz, blowing away.
It was sort of like a teepee in the wind. It went to all sorts of different shapes, and it was a bit dangerous because the recent weather we've had over the last few years has proved that this has been a really sound investment, and that's what you have to do. But why it's made me scratch my head is I thought, how can anybody young start off in farming today with the economic climate and the low value of many of the crops that we produce here in Norfolk, sugar beet being one, cereals another, and they're both suffering quite heavy price reductions at the moment, which is surprising because the costs of growing those crops are increased. And the only way you can really harvest them is with the big modern machinery. So if I just lift this cover up here underneath is a very sophisticated grass mower. It's not like the sort of thing you'll cut your front lawn with. This is capable of 10 hectares an hour, which is 25 acres. And it's all covered up with polythene to show that it's been serviced and it's ready for use for next year. And we do this because machinery, apart from the work it does here, is a huge investment, and particularly on the day that you turn around and sell it again. And it suffers what's called depreciation, which is the difference between what you buy it for. And this mower, not too expensive, about £25,000. And if we
you could buy a nice car for that, couldn't you?
I hadn't thought of that.
But I mean, you have to look after it.
Yes,
because it'll look after you.
Yes, it will, and particularly the day that you sell it. If it's obviously been well looked after, not bashed about, the paintwork's still good, and that's important. And so it gets a good second-hand value. You then trade it in, so you aren't making that big leap between buying a new machine outright without having some money come back in. So we do what's called a contra with the machinery dealers, and you buy the new one in, reduce the price of the new one by selling the old one, and hopefully you can get a bit discount as well. So it's how we do it. So it isn't all done in one step, and you can't do all this machinery round us from word go. And so when you're young and you're starting off, you have to kind of start at the bottom of the ladder, unless of course, you're lucky enough, as I was, to inherit all the bits and pieces on the farm from my father when he died, and that's often when it passes over.
So really the model traditionally has always been family farming, hasn't it?
Yes, but to be honest, I might not have always been the right person to inherit the tenancy and the ownership of the land and all the business, because there are other young people who are really enthusiastic, who are very intelligent, who deserve the chance to come into farming, and it's being made even more difficult at the moment. County councils are under very tight budgets at the moment, and many of them, particularly here in Norfolk, have what's called county council small holdings, and they were always the starting blocks for young people to start off in farming, to get a taste, to build up a small business, and then be able to move on into their own holding if they were lucky enough to find a tenancy or rely on the bank of mum and dad. But it's got to be a pretty good bank, because say 400 acres here at High Ash Farm was about £4 million without any buildings or anything with it. Land prices over the last 20 years have more than doubled, way more than doubled, 3 times in some places. That's one of the bantams, Sarah, coming out of the rain.
They're not stupid.
No, so they'll spend the end of the day down here. But if I just turn round, this is one of the new hay machines here, all ready, put at the back of the barn for use to come out next June and July.
Nice
all
shiny red
serviced.
paint.
Yes, it's all clean and ready to go again. And this is a formidable piece of machinery. The width of this building is 50 feet. It's over 100 feet long. And unfolded, this machine will nearly reach from side to side. It's 42 feet wide, unfolded. And so it's hugely important to have a properly mechanised holding. There's the straw trailer that we use for hay now.
Great big low loader for a tractor to pull.
Massive wheels on it. We've been accompanied, would you believe it, by the geese, and because they can hear me down the end of the building, and they're saying, where are you, where are you? We could do some food. And I'm down here, you stupid animals. Right, and then if you turn around behind you, there's a sprayer. Again, much more than the width of the whole building here when it's unfolded and stored away at the back. And it's got antifreeze in it already. And then a small seed drill, which is that one there, the yellow one with a little hopper in the top, and we use that for sowing small seeds. It's got an air blower on it, and it blows the seeds from tiny little pipes all over the machine.
Are they the things that look like bed springs?
Yes, and then that just gently rakes the top of the soil, because some of the seeds that we sow on the farm, a kilo will do a hectare, 2.5 acres, so no more than a bag of sugar. So it's got to go on a tiny seed rate, just because the seed is ultra expensive. This machine right beside us here, massive, 2 huge spiked wheels on it, and that's it's just short of 10 metres, and it rakes the hay in, and it's used, wait for it, this is embarrassing, about 1 day a year. The capacity is 200 acres of sort of 80 hectares a day for rowing up, which is about our hay production. If we get 2 crops of hay in a year, then it comes out twice.
2 great big wheels facing up, but yes. I presume they then go out flat.
They go out flat, and then just as they're on the ground, they're actually raking the ground.
And these vicious prongs are the rakes.
Yes, there's 250 prongs on this machine. It goes around and it windrows the hay into a big fluffy windrow. For the next piece of kit that comes along to bale it, we either use round bales for the livery here at the yard, and more we're turning to big Heston bales now. They're like enormous house bricks, 8 feet long, 4 feet by 4 feet on the end, and weighing around about 550 kilos, so getting on for the weight of a small family car. Those are absolutely enormous. Then start to diversify here, and we do something called school visits now, and this is a cracking trade. If you just squeeze back, We haven't even got halfway up the barn yet, Matthew. And this is the dilemma for anybody young. So here we've got a lovely new trailer. It's just a year old now, and it's immaculately clean, and there's 24 seats. We can have a class with the teachers. There's also a wheelchair station at the back, and there's rails all the way round, and covers on the side in case you get a school visit on a wet day. So
So in the old days, we'd have just put bales on the back of the
That's
low
exactly
loader,
what
and
I did.
the kids would sit on that.
Right.
But these days, you've just got to be more careful.
No, that's right. So I just put string round the long hay trailer there and bales down the middle, and I could have a whole class full of children on the back, and teachers. There'd be 2 or 3 teachers there to keep an eye on them. But it's so important as well if you want people to come into farming, young people who've got some initiative, who've got some sort of nuance about them, then that's maybe their first taste of real farming, what it looks like and how it's done. It's often dirty, it's often long hours, it's sometimes antisocial because, you know, if you're dealing with livestock, you can come home, and I've kept livestock here, pigs, poultry, a dairy herd, and fattening, and turkey production as well. And I used to come back to the farmhouse, and if anybody was near you who wasn't into farming, they'd say, "Cook, whatever's that smell?" I said, "Sorry, it's me." It would permeate into your hair and into your clothes as well.
High ash deodorant.
Exactly, yes. And on the other side of the barn, there's what we mow the farm tracks with. It's what's called a finishing mower, and all over the farm there are walks, 7 miles of permissive walks and 2 miles extra on top of that for the horses, and 1.5 miles of public footpaths as well. So we keep those done with that. That's 4 metres wide, and most of the walks are double that, 8 metres. And then we get to the big kit here. This is called a mulching mower. 4 gigantic blades on each wing, and 4 underneath and 4 the other side, so 12 blades, and it fires the grass upwards into this big rotating pit on the top of it and chops the grass up, and it's called a mulcher. So you can have a tall crop of grass, or if you're doing it on the wildflower fields, and it just chops it up into little 1/2-inch lengths, and that's perfect for the worms to take back into the soil. So really important piece of kit. This is a set of rolls. It weighs 6 tons, hydraulic folding. So again, when it folds out on the field, it's just about 10 metres. Well, it's actually 30 feet, so it's just under 10 metres.
So you use this to roll over the field?
Roll over the field. For those small seeds from that drill we just looked at, those tiny seeds, things like oxeye daisy, bird's foot trefoil, they're almost, you put them on your hand and go like that, and the seeds will blow away. So this helps to push the seed just into the top. It's got ribs on it. It's called a Cambridge roll. And yep, she weighs like 6.5 tons. So, and it's very fast as well. Mm-hmm. So
I can't see what I would traditionally describe as a plough.
No, that's really good observation. The plough, the combine, the sugar beet harvester, and all the equipment that went with it have all gone because those were contributing to what I was doing. They were important pieces of kit. They used a lot of diesel, particularly when you plough the fields each year, turning it over. It's a very long, slow process. And you're also disturbing a lot more soil than perhaps you need to. So the next piece of kit in front of us is called, we'll just walk forwards a bit more. We're getting there.
Make our way past us. This all fits in here like a jigsaw, doesn't it?
It's exactly what it is. A reverse jigsaw. So what we need next spring goes right at the back. So this is called a min-till machine. So they're discs at the front which just go in perhaps 4 inches deep at the maximum, about 100 mil, maybe 150 mil, and that incorporates any trash, chops it up as well. They're serrated discs, and each one's on a spring, but they're not normal springs. They're really, really powerful. And then on the back you can control the depth with this double roller, which continues to chop the soil and also to firm it up at the back here. So what we discovered is by not removing the soil 7, 8, 9 inches deep, which is what we were doing with a conventional reversible plough, is stop doing that completely and use this min-till, and we got brilliant results from it. It's fantastic. And the most important thing is, we might have time to look at it later this morning, is the worm count on the farm has gone through the roof. I mean, worms, you know, they regarded as about the lowest of the low, and it's only really come into fashion in the last few years. People are even using wormeries in their garden to help reduce the organic matter from hedge clippings and their plants that have died down. And you have a special species of worm called a brandling, or a tiger worm, because it's sort of orange and yellow stripes all down the body, and that helps. But they really only live in high organic situations. We now have those out on the farm, and as well as the conventional earthworms, and the worm population has rocketed. The only thing to suffer from it is the local gulls at this time of the year. When I used to plough autumn and into the winter for next year's sugar beet or root crop, the gulls used to feast in the cold season, December and January. When you ploughed the worms out, that you'd have a flock of gulls behind you, and that's nearly stopped because this doesn't bring the worms up to the top. Then we come to the expensive bit of the barn. If it's not enough for you already, it's a 15-ton trailer on our left, great big tipper trailer, and then this is where it does get very expensive, and this is the bit that worries me for young entrants into farming. Do you hire a tractor? If you manage to take a farm over, do you have contractors do it for you? But, you know, because the finance is so tight in all the aspects of modern farming, it's so competitive. So this is a 250 horsepower tractor. It's on a hedger at the moment.
The tyre is about probably 5'6" at least, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
6 foot.
it's 6 foot, and it's 30 inches wide, so absolutely massive. Each tyre is close to £5,000. The rear tyres are.
You're joking?
No, I'm not joking.
£5,000?
Yeah, £5,000. So it's just short of £10,000 for the two rears, and the fronts are about £1,800 each. They're considerably small. But all the tractors here are four-wheel drive. There's a JCB articulated loader right beside us. And then the smallest tractor is over there. That's 170 horsepower. Each one of those tractors, well, the big one behind us is getting up towards £200,000. It's a house on wheels, isn't it? And so this is the difficulty, and you need all of this kit. This is not.
Yes, you wouldn't get this. You wouldn't be just collecting this. Would you?
No, I promise you. Fertiliser spreader there. We use that for seed now, so we got rid of the seed drill, and we broadcast the seed on. This is the large seeds, not those tiny wildflower seeds. And then a really interesting machine over there with all the ropes and cables on it. That's a modern post knocker with a half-ton weight on it, which comes down and just whacks posts into the ground.
Like a hammer.
Yeah, exactly what it is. It's very safe and very, very powerful, and it just drops the posts into the ground, which we do at the end of winter. We go around all the posts for the horse pastures. So diversification is another way for young people to come into the business and just taste it and make sure as you go along that you don't leap too quickly into any individual enterprise. It's important not to make mistakes when you. I've made a few, so I know. So
couldn't you? Do you ever maybe sometimes think, instead of one of these tractors, why don't I drive around in a Rolls Royce?
Yep, exactly. And with my elbow out of the car and a very large cigar, shouting, "Get off my land!"
I can't see you doing that.
Quite the opposite. And so the Norfolk motto is, of course, do different. So here we actually welcome the public. Many farms feel detached from the public and they're a bit threatened by them. But when you think what you're doing, most of the produce that many productive farms are providing into the supermarkets, that's where your customers are. And I think many businesses are now beginning to realise it's important to bring the customers as close to home as you can. Diversification, lots of farm restaurants and cafes happening, small garden centres on farms happening as well. It's all part of this tapestry where you're still getting a living from the land, but in a lot of new and unusual forms, and that's the important bit of diversification. But you mustn't make a mistake and run too quickly, which is tempting when you're young, I can tell you. So there we are. So lots of machinery. I just thought to keep us out of that rain for a few minutes, we'd come in here and enjoy the comfort of the farm workshop.
Well, we're back near the big entrance now to the shed, and bantams enjoy it in there. And look outside, it's grey, windy, and there's rain coming in sideways.
Yes, and the weather vane is pointing absolutely bang on due north with Storm Benjamin. So, right, I think you need your hat on, Matthew, and we're going to have to go out and grin and bear this, because it is a countryside podcast. It's not in the farm workshop podcast. And those bantams, I think, have got it right, and we're the stupid ones.
Rat has gone whisking off, as we're actually out on the farm now in one of the fields. It's only very light rain, but the wind is making it rather unpleasant. And the hedges, this one here, Chris, looks like it's all been freshly chopped.
Well, we do the hedging, and wait for it, there's 26 miles of hedgerow at High Ash Farm. We do around about a third of it every year, but the roadsides we do every year because it grows out so quickly onto the sort of edge of the carriageways, and when you go around the corners in Norfolk, it's not straight from one bend to the next usually, so you need all the visibility, and the country lanes are getting faster and faster, so we try and be as safe as we can. But the hedges out on the farm, and this has only been in since 2006, and there's some lovely standard trees, ash and oak all the way down. And so, yeah, it's really challenging because it's a slow and expensive job. Give you an idea, I would think the hedging bill, if we had a contract to do it, and we do it in-house, Neil cuts most of the hedges, it would be around about £20,000 a year. So, and the thing is, there's no income from it.
Some would say, though, leave these hedges as they are.
You leave them uncut? Yes, I've done that on the farm, but because of the species involved, hawthorn, blackthorn, they are shrub species or understory species, and if you leave them, when you get weather like this, after they're 25, 30 years old, they just keel over, and they become what we call open as well. Whereas a good stock-proof hedge, and we use a lot of the hedging here to keep the horses in check with fencing wire in the hedge itself, so it acts as a livestock barrier as well. But when you keep them tightly cut, particularly the ones around the farmstead itself, the sparrows use that all day, and the open hedges, they'd just be inviting the local hawks to come in and feast on the sparrows, whereas a tight hedge, the sparrows just duck down, so to speak, into the hedge, and the sparrowhawk can't get them. So it is quite important a habitat for us, and it joins all the woodlands together on the farm. They're rather like motorways. When you look up this one, you see it zigzags all the way up to Arminghall Wood at the top, close to half a mile away, and then there's a woodland behind us here. So they're like wildlife corridors, rather like rivers are, with aquatic animals and fish and birds. And out on the farm, these are ideal. And of course, we have a wonderful, fantastic population of yellowhammers here, and the bottom of the hedges away from the walks are not cut, and you have all tussocky grass and grass margins, and that's what the yellowhammers love to nest in. They're ground nesting birds, together with the grey partridge and lots of other species. Goldfinches here as well use them to nest in, so it's a really important habitat. But you notice I've come along with a spade in my hand, and we were looking at some of the equipment in the farm workshop, and I was explaining how we've stopped ploughing, and what's happened to the worm population here at High Ash Farm, particularly earthworms, which are crucial. And our fields are now like a colander. So the worms make these little vertical holes in the soil. In really dry weather, worm activity almost ceases completely. But we've come out on the ideal day, heavy rain, the rain patting on the ground, and it does something marvellous. It brings the worms up to the top. He says, fingers crossed, because I brought the spade and I'm going to take a little square of soil out in a moment and see if we can actually see any earthworms. Rat has decided to be sensible and he's sitting by the truck.
I think he wants to go back in.
Yeah, I think he does. I'll be there in a minute, Rat. The ears say it all. They're flat back on his head. Right, we'll just go anywhere. This is a 30-acre field. And just dig in and take a little square out like this, and then we can raise it up, and straight away, just have a look here, Matthew.
Oh, there's a big juicy worm there, isn't there?
Look at that.
It's beauty.
That's a cracker. That's Lumbricus terrestrius. That's a common earthworm. The head is the narrow end at the top here. Yep. And the small one there.
Little baby.
Yep. Let's see what else we got. It's quite heavy clay. Have we got any others? This is just one little space. Oh, another one here, a large one. That one, the first one, we've got 6 inches long. This one is about 4 inches long.
There's another little one there.
Yes, look at that. That's absolutely perfect. That's a juvenile earthworm. That's only an inch long and not much thicker than a human hair. Well spotted. Rat has decided to come and have a look.
Yes, he says digging is my department.
Yes. Let's see if we've got any more. And of course there'll be lots of another. Oh, here we go. One. This is only a 6 inch by 6 inch little square. 2 more that I've taken out. Absolutely perfect. And you can see the original one I've dug out has almost legged it and gone invisible. That's absolutely cracking. So when you multiply that up,
there's a lot of 6 inch squares on this field.
Yes, you get 4,840 square yards, I should say, to an acre, 4840, 10,000 square yards and a hectare. And the worm population is in the millions here. They've come up today, but in recent weeks the ground's been so dry, worms stop coming up to the surface to take organic matter back down, and they do something strange. It's like hibernation for some creatures in the winter months, but it's called aestivating, and it's done in the summer, spelt with an A-E-S, aestivate. Yes, it's really unusual.
There'll be other worms in there, won't there?
Yeah, oh, there's loads of worms. But can you see something? I've taken out the soil. This is heavy clay, and it's quite damp this morning. It's full of fibres. All the organic matter's up near the top. And those worms are taking any crop residues down because there's such a huge population. And it's all being done naturally, so it's not using farm diesel. That's the secret of good soil structure. Also, if you've got good soil structure, plant roots can go down into the soil and gather the nutrients. And remember, those worms are important in providing fertiliser, some of the micronutrients that way down in the soil. To dig their little earth burrows, these vertical channels that go down, they have to remove the soil. They eat the soil and ingest it. It goes in one end, comes out the other, and you see it on the top of the soil. If we just look carefully, we'll probably see some. It's actually full. Here you are, it's a beauty. Look at that. It's a worm, what we call a worm cast.
That's a big one as well,
yeah,
isn't it?
It is. It's about 1.5 inches tall, about 4-5 centimetres up, that one.
Another one there, they're all over.
That's it. Once you get the hang of seeing them, look, in between each clump of grass, there's another worm cast. So you can see it's a massive population. And that's the other secret at this time of the year. We don't go on the ground with those heavy tractors and the equipment you just saw when it's wet, because compressed soil is kind of dead soil. It has a huge effect, and that's one of the challenges of some of the root crops we grow, particularly sugar beet, which the campaign, or the harvest, what we call it, has just started at this time of the year, and often it's done at the wet time of year, and you can suffer a lot of soil structural damage that damages all these little rootlets in the soil. So it's really important to study soil science and realise how important those little creatures are, worms, which have been overlooked for years and years.
Well, you talk about ivy being an unsung hero.
Yes.
Worms are equal, aren't they?
Oh yes, I'm a strange kettle of fish. But yeah, it's come into our language quite a lot. Sort of, I'm just trying to think. A worm in one's ear. It's sort of worm-like. I'm just trying to think.
The worm that turned?
Yes, the worm that turned. That's another good one. Yes, there's lots of them. Yes, so to worm into favour is to sort of do things that change somebody else's opinion of you. You're worming slowly.
That's what I'm doing here with
Rat.
Yes,
Yes.
just
Right,
trying to warm him up.
Yeah, let's just put this soil back in the little
Replace
hole there,
all
repaired
divots.
it completely. The divots are gone. The worms that we dug out that we just put on the grass have completely disappeared. I don't blame them.
They've dived.
Yes, they've dived down. But everywhere we look, Matthew, just look.
Yeah.
It is absolutely packed with worm casts.
And that's healthy soil.
That's perfect, yes. You've got good soil structure, good humus up near the top. Good also for drought avoidance as well, when you've got good amount of organic matter in the soil, particularly on light soils, which in Norfolk we call hungry soils, because they consume a lot of organic matter, because the air content in the soil is much higher than it is with clay. And we started to discover this when we stopped straw burning in the 1970s. It caused a lot of controversy and a lot of angry farmers as well, and it ended they chopping straw and incorporating it into the ground, and they suddenly found that the humus content on the clay soils improved drainage, and their improved crop yields as well. And from the grimace it became a smile, and we've learned ever since then, those heady days of straw burning, that if you look after the soil, it will look after you.
Well, we're sort of out of the wind here because we're in the woods, aren't we? Fox's Grove, and big droplets are falling from the canopy.
Yes, I decided that we're in a safe portion of the woodland, although the wind hasn't yet peaked. We're getting about 20-25 miles an hour. If it is any higher than that, although I can hear the wind going through the canopy way above us, if it's higher than that, then I'd sort of think it's best we didn't get hit even by a small twig from at the top. So really interesting time of year, and an interesting portion of Fox's Grove as well, because we have some giant trees in here, and we think this particular species that we're looking at this morning, sweet chestnut, just landed on the car roof and bounced off. And we think the Romans are responsible for bringing them into the UK, so they've become a kind of nearly a native tree. Don't confuse them with horse chestnuts or conker trees. These are sweet chestnuts, quite closely related to beech and to oak as well. Rat's just joined us. This isn't his favourite bit of the wood because of all the prickly hedgehog cases of the chestnuts on the ground. But the trees here, there must be something in the soil that they really, really love. So
Deer over there.
oh yes, look, yeah, all the chestnuts are dropping there. That was a Chinese water deer actually going through the undergrowth. Wow, we got red deer in here, just 2 or 3 red deer, lots of roe deer, and they all sort of congregate in this particular area of the woodland because of all the sort of windfall chestnuts. But to give you an idea, of the size, the girth of these trees. And I think one of the biggest trees in the UK, with the largest girth, I should say, is in Canford School in Dorset, and that's got 44 feet circumference, so a little bit more than my waist. But I brought a tape measure with us. We'll just have a bit of fun. And the way you measure a tree's girth is around about 5 feet above ground level. Rat's decided that this is too much for him, and he's going to go back in the truck like that. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you one end of the tape measure. I don't know if you'd like to walk round the tree.
Okay.
And I'll hold this end.
So you're going to hold there?
Yes, I'll hold. Round you go.
Round we go.
And that's approximately 5 feet up.
Swallows flying into one of the large barns at High Ash Farm, feeding their young. This is one of the big conservation success stories I know you're very proud of.
Just brings a huge delight. 4 youngsters just waiting for mum and dad.
The podcast aims to bring you sights and sounds like this every week, and we're very thankful of your support. So any donations or subscriptions are very welcome indeed.
All we need is a little bit of extra help. It just keeps it going from week to week.
Monthly or one-off subscriptions, whatever the size. And the website, highashfarm.com/podcast.
6 youngsters right above our head, all with their gates wide open.
Oh, there we are. All the way around. Oh, goodness me. Oh, you're joining me. There we are. So
14 feet. There we are, 15 feet. You happy with that?
yeah, that's what it says.
Yep, 15 feet round. There we are. And I'll let the tape go, and that will all reel itself back in. So that's probably 250 years old, and they can match oak trees in their longevity. But usually this has got lovely straight bark, and normally on many of the sweet chestnuts in the wood here, this whole area of woodland was planted out. Normally the bark twists around.
This
and
is really ramrod straight.
Yeah, it
here,
is. This is a cracking piece of timber. You're probably talking about 20 tons of tree here, to give you an idea. So, and a living creature as well. So absolutely amazing. Really solid. It's good wood as well. It can be used for all sorts of purposes. It lasts quite a long time, like oak, in the soil, so it can be used for posts. But for furniture and for beams in old properties, it often suffers from this condition of that twisted bark. When you actually cut the boles out, the beams, if you like, from sweet chestnut, they get a condition called the shakes, and it just sort of opens up in between all the grain, and you can't actually use it. It just almost disintegrates itself, although the wood is very hard. So if we just walk across the track here, this is an old shooting ride, we'll just cross over.
Very autumnal scene here,
yes,
isn't it?
It is, absolutely. The ground is covered in leaves now. They're the sweet chestnut leaves on the ground, turned beautiful golden yellow. I'll just pick one up. I used to play a game with my sisters with this called fish bones. And what my sisters would do, they were more intricate with the scissors than me. The leaves are lance-shaped, they're about 8 inches long. And if you take all the bit out between the veins, it looks exactly like a fish's skeleton when you've taken all the bones off. So that was a game we used to play as children on wet days like today. So we just walk under this tree.
Didn't you have a computer then?
No, there's no such thing. Not way back then. So this is the crop, and it is absolutely phenomenal this year. This warm summer has suited sweet chestnut trees. There's some decent sized ones all over the woodland floor.
Just pick up a couple there.
Yeah, look at that.
Beautiful
yes.
chestnuts.
And you can see
they're
we've
all
had
over, aren't they?
mammals. Look, the whole ground
There's
is
too
all...
many for them to eat.
Yes, there is. So that's the whole thing. At this time of the year, the wind is perfect for the trees. It's almost as though they have designed the weather. It knocks the chestnuts down en masse. Then the little hedgehog cases drop onto the ground. Usually they're split into 4 parts. You usually have 3 nuts in each hedgehog case. And then the leaves come off on top and cover it all up. So when you look down, you can see all these little white fragments. And this is from last night, all the small mammals and the deer actually picking up this sort of pot. Oh yeah, that one's been eaten.
That one's been hollowed out.
Yeah, exactly. The badgers, we're quite close to the badger set here at the farm, and the badgers just eat the whole chestnuts. And my badgers on the video cameras, they all look as though, the males and the females, they all look as though they're several months pregnant at the moment. But it's just overeating, to be honest.
We have an obesity crisis here among the badgers.
Yes, exactly that. But it's perfect because we've got the cold weather coming. A lot of the mammals store food under the ground. Hedgehogs don't do that. They'll go into hibernation shortly. The badgers don't store it. They just eat an awful lot and get put on as much subcutaneous fat as they can. Some of the mice species will hoard them. Jays will cache them as well, fly off with them. But generally, sweet chestnut doesn't really grow by itself very well. It needs to be planted as a young plant, and most of the specimens you see out in the United Kingdom have been planted rather than natural one. I've got some regenerative wood on the south side of Fox's Grove, and there's perhaps a dozen sweet chestnut trees in which have presumably been either bought there by squirrels or by jays, so they're not good at self-establishing. But this whole area of woodland is absolutely covered in sweet chestnut trees. It's quite amazing. So interesting for me because the Romans called Venta Icenorum, or the town of the Iceni, which is just to the west of us here, they called the Roman name for Casta was Castra, and the scientific name of the sweet chestnut is Castanea sativia, to be correct. So it's almost as though they called the Roman town beside us Chestnut Town. I love it. It's such a lovely name, and it was important to them because wherever the Romans went in Europe, wherever they invaded, they brought sweet chestnuts with them. Sweet chestnuts are a native of Greece, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, and that's where you get the very large ones, and they're called sweet chestnuts as well. Because of the texture of them. They're actually quite sweet when you boil them, and I used to make chestnut stuffing for my mum at Christmas. We'd boil them and mix it with butter,
lovely.
And it was fantastic.
Well, they're quite nice, just roasted in the oven.
And they're also called Spanish chestnuts. Now, they're not really natives of Spain. They do produce quite a good crop down there, but that swirl I talked about in the bark, where the bark sort of spirals up the trunk, we think it might have come from the flamenco skirts that dancers used to use, where they click their fingers like this and dance evocatively and swirl their sort of dresses, and it looked a bit like that twist of the bark. But good timber. And if we did walk up, which we won't this morning, further up the wood, some of the chestnuts, and it still is a crop that's grown commercially in the UK, is used for chestnut pale fencing, for fencing stakes as well, and that would involve pollarding the trees. So even this venerable old chestnut beside us here, twisted and gnarled as it is, if you cut it off down at the ground level, it would form a stump, obviously. That would then shoot out, and that's called a stool, the little bit that shoots out. And then if you leave it 5 years, you get quite thin chestnut fencing, and if you leave it a bit longer, you could actually get hop poles used down south, where poles are made to train the hops up them, and they can be 10, 15 feet tall, and they would be harvested as well. And coppicing is a brilliant form of, it's one of the earliest forms of woodland management, right back to Neolithic times when people started to do that and use fencing. Often chestnut would be used. Bearing in mind it was been in the UK for at least 2,000 years when the Romans invaded Britain in the early 2,000 years ago, I should say. And so it's been used ever since. So a brilliant, when you see it this year, which is why I brought you in this windy condition. In a day or two's time, this would all be covered in leaves, and we wouldn't see that fantastic crop, which is going to be hidden up. I mean, if I put my hand on the ground, I can get 4, 5, 6 chestnuts underneath the span of my hand.
Terrific food for the deer, the
Yep.
badgers.
So what I've done is I've put a couple of cameras here, and there's things, one just behind the tree here, focused on this area of woodland here, to see if we can actually catch who comes here between now and when our podcast goes out every Sunday morning. And just for a bit of fun, we might catch some of my fat badgers, or maybe even some of the long-tailed field mice, all having a heyday.
Doing a rendition of Underneath the Spreading Chestnut
Of
Tree.
course, I can feel it coming on.
Well, we've only got a few more minutes left to us, so I suppose we'd better dip into the post bag, Chris. But
Yes.
before we do that, just a huge thank you to everyone who came to see the podcast live event in our local theatre here, the Madder Market.
Yes, it was quite an event, and I was quite surprised to see the turnout. I think the theatre was more or less full. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we did some of the videos from the farm, some of the things that happened here over the course of the last year, some of the history too. And to be honest, I absolutely enjoyed it. And we were joined by a special guest as well, not Rat the dog. I daren't bring him into the theatre. We were joined by a butterfly right in the middle of the presentation, and it nearly brought the house down. I think there was more cheering with the butterfly than we got at the end, but it was a really lovely event which we both enjoyed. So thank you if you did turn up and come along. Much appreciated.
Here's an email from Ray Howells. Chris answered my request on his podcast in April this year regarding horse chestnut trees that I'd planted on my husband's compost heap. He said he could arrange to have them in the autumn, so please can you contact him so we can deliver them. We'd really appreciate it if you could get back to us via email. So this is actually from Jan, and Ray is her husband.
Yeah.
And do you think you've got any spare?
Yes, I've got some space. Although horse chestnut is a non-native tree, nonetheless it's a really attractive species, and just love them. And I used to bring back memories of my school days playing conkers with all my friends in the school playground.
And here's one from Tracy, who sends a heartfelt thanks to you for all you do, Chris, with the podcast and promoting wildlife. And she points up the fact that it's very good for people who may be going through dark times to enjoy the countryside and learn something, and it makes people feel a little brighter.
Yes, and she's been able to stand back and appreciate some of the things that we've talked about on our weekly podcast, and it's made her realise that how important nature and natural history is, and it's brought some light back into her life, let's put it like that. Thanks, Tracy.
Emails, send them anytime you like to chris@highashfarm.com. And if you'd like to make a donation, whether it's a one-off donation or maybe a monthly contribution, then it all goes towards making this podcast every week. highashfarm.com/podcast. You can find out more there.
Yes, great. And looking forward to next week when we're going to do something very special that we only do, I think, once a year, Matthew. So I'm looking forward to that. So listen in the following week. We'll be in November then for our special broadcast.
You're going to buy me a drink or something?
Oh, come on, don't be stupid.
Once a year. Right, time to get in the shelter.
I think so.